Hey, you think I don't know about YouTube? Well, I do. With today's story, you laugh, you learn, and you remember where you come from and recognize where you are going. The elders say, what the old sees while sitting, a young cannot see even from the top of a tree. So come now, listen well and let the story speak to your spirit.
When the harmattan winds softened and the dust began to settle on the plains of Burkina Faso, the weaver birds returned to the banks of the Nakambe River. Their nests, shaped like small woven gods, dangled from the tall branches of the shea trees, trembling gently in the morning light. In the village of Tiogo, life was awakening. Women pounded millet in their courtyards to the rhythmic thud of pestles. Men sharpened their hoes and repaired their tools, and children chased goats through the alleyways with laughter that scattered the hens. The air smelled of earth, smoke, and promise. Among these villagers lived a young man named Seydou, whose hands were blessed with unusual skill. He was known for weaving the finest mats and baskets in all of Tiogo. His creations were tight and flawless, their patterns more intricate than the wings of a dragonfly. The elders often said that Seydou's hands were guided by the ancestors themselves. But Seydou was restless. He was not content to be known only in his village. His heart burned for greatness, the kind of greatness that would make his name live in stories, sung by griots and whispered by strangers in distant markets. His grandmother, Yabakango, who had raised him since his parents passed, saw this fire in him and worried. She would shake her head and say, "Seydou, the calabash that drinks too much water will drown itself. Be content with what you can swallow." But Seydou would only smile and say, "Grandmother, how can a man drown in his thirst for greatness?"
One evening, as the sun dissolves into molten gold above the savannah, Seydou sat by the Nakambe River, watching the weaver birds flit from branch to branch. Their tiny wings glowed in the fading light as they wove their hanging nests with perfect precision. He wondered aloud, who taught them to weave so beautifully? How can creatures so small create such wonder? Then, to his astonishment, one of the birds flew down and landed on a stone near him. Its feathers glimmered like bronze, and its eyes seemed to hold an ancient light. It looked straight at Seydou and spoke in a clear, ringing voice. "Seydou of Tiogo, your hands are gifted, but your heart is troubled. Would you like to learn the secret of the river?" Seydou froze. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was dreaming, but the bird tilted its head and said again, "The Nakambe hides treasures greater than gold. If you learn its secret, your name will outlive kings." His heart thudded in his chest. "What secret?" he whispered. "Come tomorrow night when the moon is full," said the weaver bird. "Bring a gourd of honey and the calabash your grandmother forbade you to touch." Before Seydou could ask more, the bird spread its wings and vanished into the dimming sky, leaving him trembling with wonder and greed. That night, Seydou could not sleep. The words of the bird echoed in his mind. He remembered the calabash his grandmother kept hidden on a high shelf, wrapped in red cloth. Whenever he had asked about it, she would say, "That one is not for your hands, my son. It carries a promise older than you." But now, curiosity gnawed at him. When Yabakango finally drifted into sleep, Seydou crept to the shelf and gently pulled down the calabash. It glowed faintly under the moonlight. Strange carvings spiraled across its surface, moving like ripples in water. Seydou whispered,
A promise older than me? Then it must hold power. He took it along with a god of honey and slipped out before dawn. When the moon rose full and bright over the plains, Seidu reached the river bank. The weaver bird was waiting, its feathers gleaming silver under the moonlight. Pour the honey into the calabash, it instructed. Then place it in the river. Seidu did as he was told. The river rippled, and from its depths rose a figure, a woman made of water. Her hair flowed like liquid crystal, her eyes shimmered with moonlight, and her voice was like the sound of rain falling on stone. "Who calls the river from its sleep?" she asked. Seidu knelt trembling. "I am Seidu of Tiogo, son of Yeri and grandson of Yabakango. I seek greatness." The spirit studied him. "Greatness," she said slowly, "is a heavy calabash to carry. Are you prepared to pay its weight?" "I am," Seidu replied without hesitation. "Then listen well," the spirit said. "At the bottom of my river lies the stone of Sirah, a gem that holds the power of creation. With it, your hands can bring life to anything they touch. But it must never be used in deceit or pride, or it will demand a soul in return." Seidu's eyes glowed with hunger. "How can I find it?" "Follow the moonlight down the river's current. The weaver bird will guide you."
With that, she vanished into the water, leaving only the scent of honey and rain behind. For 7 nights, Seidu followed the weaver bird along the Nakambe's winding banks. On the 7th night, he found a glowing stone half buried in the mud. When he touched it, warmth surged through his hands. The weaver bird sang softly above him. "Hands that weave truth will build kingdoms. Hands that weave lies will bury them." When Seidu returned to Tiogo, his hands burned with new energy. He began to weave baskets that could hold water without leaking, mats that shimmered like gold under sunlight. People came from far villages to see his work. Traders from Ouagadougou carried his creations across the land. Even the chief of Tiogo heard of him and sent word that Seidu's hands were touched by the gods. But pride grows quickly in the heart of man. The more praise Seidu received, the more he forgot the river's warning. He began to look down on others, even his old friend Umar, a humble farmer who had once shared everything with him. One afternoon, Umar came to him and said, "Brother, the rains are late again. The millet is dying. Can you use your gift to call the rain?" Seidu laughed. "I am no rainmaker." But that night, he could not stop thinking, "If I could call rain, the whole land would know my name." He took the stone of Sirah, wove a mat of reeds and feathers, and whispered into it, "Bring forth the clouds." When he laid it under the open sky, thunder rolled and rain poured down. The fields drank greedily. The villagers danced in joy. Umar ran to him and said, "Let us use your gift to help everyone." But greed had already taken root in Seidu's heart. "No," he said, "this is my gift, mine alone." Umar warned him gently. "A man who drinks alone from a shared calabash invites poison into his belly." But Seidu turned away, too proud to listen. Not long after, word of his power reached Chief Zongo, a man who loved gold more than goodness. The chief summoned Seidu and said, "If your hands truly weave miracles, make me a robe that never stains, an ornament that never fade. Do this, and I will make you my advisor." Seidu hesitated. He remembered Siraba's warning, but the thought of standing beside a chief was too tempting. He took the stone of Sira and began to weave. He worked for 7 days and nights, his hands never resting. When he finished, he had created a robe so radiant it hurt the eyes to look upon, an ornament that gleamed like captured sunlight. When Chief Zongo wore them, he roared with delight. "You have outdone the spirits themselves, Seidu. You are truly the greatest of men." At that moment, the weaver bird appeared at the window, its eyes solemn. "You have woven deceit. The river remembers." Seidu scowled and waved it away. Let the river remember what it will. But soon, strange things began to happen. The Nakambe turned murky and foul. Fish floated lifeless on the water. The shea trees along the riverbank withered, their leaves curling like fists. Each night, Seidu heard whispers rising from the river, calling his name. Then, Yaba Kango fell ill. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She called for Seidu and said weakly, "The calabash you stole has broken its promise. The river spirit demands balance." Seidu knelt by her side. "What must I do, grandmother?" "Return what you took," she whispered. "Confess your deceit to the river. Only truth can calm its anger." But Seidu was afraid. He could not bear to lose his fame, his fortune, his place beside the chief. He told himself he would make peace with the river later. But that night, thunder growled though the sky was clear, and the Nakambe began to rise. The river burst its banks, swallowing the fields and huts. The villagers screamed, "The river is angry!" Seidu ran to the water's edge, where the current boiled like fire. From the flood rose Seraba, her eyes blazing. "You have broken the vow," she thundered. "You used my gift for deceit and pride. A soul must pay the price." "I will return the stone," Seidu cried. "Spare my people." But the spirit's voice was like rolling thunder. "The river does not take words for payment." Then the weaver bird appeared, its wings heavy with sorrow, and sang softly. "Truth delayed is truth denied. The river counts every lie." The current surged, and Seidu was swept away, his cries fading beneath the roaring water. By morning, the flood had receded. The village was broken, but the Nankambe flowed clear again, as though it had washed itself of memory. The weaver birds returned to rebuild their nests, and life began slowly to return. Among the ruins, Umar found the stone of Sierra washed ashore, still glowing faintly. He picked it up, feeling its warmth. For a moment, he thought of using it to rebuild the village, to end hunger, to bring prosperity. But then he remembered his friend's fate. The weaver bird landed beside him and said quietly, "Do not repeat his folly. Return it to the water." Umar walked to the river's edge and placed the stone gently beneath the waves. The river shimmered, and for a moment he saw Seraba's face, calm and beautiful once more. "Wisdom lives in those who let go," she whispered before vanishing. From that day, the river flowed peacefully again. The crops grew tall, the trees bore fruit, and Tiogo was restored. Years passed, and the story of Seidu the weaver became a lesson told by griots in every village from Tiogo to Bobo Dioulasso. Yaba Kango, who lived long enough to see peace return, would often sit by her hut, surrounded by children, and say, "My grandson wove beauty with his hands, but deceit with his heart. Both threads met in the same cloth."
And when the weaver birds returned each season to hand their nests over the river, the villagers would look up and say, "There flies the spirit of truth, still watching over us." They say that if you stand by the Nankambi on a quiet night when the moon is full, you can still hear Seidu's voice carried on by the wind, whispering, "Truth is the only thread that never breaks." And so the tale ends, but its wisdom remains. Greed will weave gold, but wisdom weaves peace. Those who twist truth for gain will one day be tangled in their own deceit. The river forgets no lie, and the weaver bird never stops singing. Hands that weave truth will build kingdoms. Hands that weave lies will bury them.
My dear ones, this is where our story ends for now. But tell me, what did your heart feel as you listened? Share your thoughts in the comment, You know Grandma loves to hear from you. And don't forget, press that subscribe button, like the story, and ring the little bell so that every time I come back here, you will be the first to join me. Until then, may your paths be safe, fruitful, and peaceful. Remember, keep your heart warm, your spirit curious and kind.